Welcome back to the Up in the Blue Seats podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Harts. As always, we're joined by former Ranger Brian Boyle, New York Post Rangers beat writer, Miss Mollie Walker. And look, we're just going to get right into it. The Rangers are in a little bit of a funk here since we last spoke. This is the first time we've spoken since they've lost back-to-back games, and now they're in a 1-3 little mid-season crisis, which, hey, look, again, there's not going to be smooth sailing through the entire season. You knew this little bumpy stretch was going to come. But it's again, like we've spoken about in past podcasts, it's good that's happening now after the Rangers have built up this whole little lead they have in the Metro and the East. So they're still going to be okay. We're here to talk you off the ledge where we don't want anybody jumping. Like I think Mollie said last podcast, I forgot which Ranger player said it. Nobody's cat died.
Truba, dog died.
Nobody's dog died. Jacob Truba. It's all going to be
No one
fine.
cares if your cat dies.
Yeah, it's the dogs.
They've got 8 other lives. It's totally fine.
Sorry to the cat lovers listening.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Brian's in one today.
Making fans.
He's coming with all the hot takes. You'll hear.
Oh, there's plenty of hot takes to warm us up now that it is officially winter. It's cold here in New York. Mollie, I know, has been all over the place in the winter, great north up in Canada, but here in New York, we're starting to feel it now. But let's get into last night's game. They lost to the Maple Leafs, and look, again, it's going to look ugly because they gave up a few empty netters, but the guys just didn't really answer. They went down early, 3-0. Give them credit. They fought back. They were down a goal going into the third period, which, again, you like to see. That's been a calling card to this Ranger team. But, Brian, let me start with you. What exactly is going on with this Rangers team right now? They seem to be in a little bit of a funk. There's some goaltending where it's a little shoddy, some slow play. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I mean, I think with all the success, there had to be sort of a regression. You can't go, 75-8. Is that right? Yeah. 75-7.
Math.
Bad math. There we
Math.
go. That's not my friend.
No, I'm right.
Oh,
there
like you
with
can't. They have. Look, they built up all this equity, like you said. There is, I don't know. We've done this now. I've done this analogy, but you buy a house, you build this nice house, you put insurance in it because of days like this. They keep trying to win games when they're on that heater because there's going to be a lull in the season at some point. Now, a big win against LA, but again, that's a structured team, and you can almost play to your structure better when you're playing against a structured team. The Leafs are different, and if you're off your game a little bit in terms of how you're going to defend, or if you've played a lot of hockey in a short amount of time, they're going to expose you because of the weapons they have. They're an explosive team and a creative one. So if you saw them do something for 3 games in a row, say on their power play, well, they might have 3 or 4 other clubs in their bag that they can throw at you if you take that one thing away because of the dynamic offensive players that they have. So again, if you're not quite right with your game, you're going to get exposed. And they did in the first, and give them credit for coming back. But then in the third, there weren't a ton of shots on net when I looked up in the third period, but there was so much happening in the game. I figured there'd be like 40 shots apiece, but it was like 22-21 at one point. And I'm like, this is insane. Like there's almost chances going back and forth, which is, I don't think Stanley Cup contenders, or if you have those aspirations, you want to have that chaos. You want to be a little bit more structured and pounce on the opportunities that you get from the other team's mistakes or your structure.
I think that the first period has been a bit of an issue the last couple of games. They've been outscored 7-1, just, not getting to their game right away and almost getting away from what they've been doing so well to start the season as well. I think that they've had, what are they, 0-3 with Igor in the last few games.
Yep.
So I think that that's definitely doing something to his psyche as well. He was absolutely dejected after the Maple Leafs game. He said he didn't know what to say. He really didn't know what to say. I really liked the way that Blake Wheeler was talking about it after the game. It's very similar stuff to what Brian was just saying. You need these stretches, and it's not always going to be linear. It's not always going to be an upward trajectory. you're going to have adversity. I also think that we're underestimating. Keandre Miller was out against the Maple Leafs. They had to rearrange the decor. And if we're looking at also them being without Filipino and Capo Caco, even though if you want to argue that Capo Caco wasn't contributing on offense, defensively, those guys are important to the structure, to the way that they were playing earlier on in the season. Let's not forget that these two guys have been on LTIR for a long time now. So, and the fact that they are still where they're at, that's something that they can hang their hats on. So yeah, I think it's the first real rut of the season, if you want to call it that. But honestly, listening to Blake Wheeler, first of all, I was thinking, well, this is one of the reasons why they brought him in here.
Yeah.
Because he had such a good head on his shoulders about it, and the way that he was talking about it, it's very much so. They're so far from the panic button. I think Igor might be a little, concerned for himself, but I think that the team as a whole is just fine. Everybody just breathe. And I think that Laviolette, we've talked about it before, how he has seen everything that the Rangers has been doing as correctable and fixable. And that is exactly what I expect him to do.
And that's the thing. I mean, you can only take on water for so long. They got through the Fox LTIR situation pretty well. But that's why you build up that equity. Now, one of the things I was curious about, and I know players, they're never gonna harper on the officials, but you mentioned the start of the third period and they went to that power play and there was I believe it was interference, and then you watch back the replay and you go,
I didn't see it.
Right.
The Gustafson on Marner.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
It looked like Marner tripped Gustafson.
Right. It didn't look like Gustafson knew where Marner was, and Marner
Yeah.
skated into him and fell. And then that goal, I mean, that one's not on Igor.
No.
Yeah.
But look, hey, that happens, and that'll happen in the playoffs. How do you respond? Now, they had already dug themselves in a hole. They sort of dug out of it, but that happens. That happens sometimes. So this is like, the season is, you want to win every game. You can't. You want to finish in first place. You don't always do that. But how many teams that finish in first place win? I mean, one team wins the whole thing. So you take the lessons that you have learned throughout the year. You watch, I mean, if I'm Lavi, I'm watching my team, how they respond, how they develop, who's trending where. And we speculate. That's what fans do. And that's what, talking heads do. Like, we're going to speculate as to what, and the position that they're in right now. Well, it remains to be seen how they react from this, but I think, I do. I like where they're at. I said it a month ago that they're deep. I think Blake Wheeler, I know he had a couple last night, but the third period, he had shifts where he was dominant.
Yeah.
Like,
that was the positive.
The guy.
That was the positive
That's the guy
to take out of.
That's the guy you got. He was flying. He took over.
He was great.
The game for stretches. And I was like, yes, this is why I was excited about this signing. And, Keandre Miller is becoming a bigger and bigger piece, which I fully expected him to do. I want him to be, I think there's more there too. He could be dominant. And with Igor, man, he had some rushes against that were just like crazy. And he made some ridiculous saves. And then was it Trouba who slid across?
That was a great
beautiful
play.
sequence.
And those get lost when you're writing up game reports after a loss like that and a high event loss like that. But I don't forget that. That was incredible. But Mollie, you were saying it about the rushes, and I don't know if I'm jumping in too early on this.
No.
Those are hard things to say. Like, those will get into you as a goalie, into your head. Like, oh my, I have to make some ridiculous save here. Where if the structure in front of you is good, we talked about it with Valley, you play your position, you're not overtaxed, and you end a period, you just made 12 saves, you go back in, you have a lead, and you don't even think about it. Now it's like every play matters because it's such a high event thing. So if they can calm that down a little bit and get back into that structure, they have too much talent not to win games.
All right, Brian, here's my question to you. And there's absolutely no doubt that the Rangers have left Igor Shesterkin out to dry on several occasions in his last few games. There's this narrative, I guess you could say, and my mother, I hope she's listening,
Mama Walker
is one of the biggest proponents of this narrative. She is convinced, as many Rangers fans are, that the Rangers play differently in front of Igor Shesterkin than they do Jonathan Quick. And as a former player, I am just dying to hear for your take on this, because I feel like it is a concept that has been discussed so many times for this Rangers team in particular, dating all the way back to Henrik Lundqvist. So please, I would like to hear your take.
Yeah, no, they hate Igor. The guys in the room hate him.
Yeah, right. I know.
No, that narrative drove me
even
nuts. It
It's
drove
not-
me crazy.
It's not that they hate him. It's that this is the notion I'm saying. I'm speaking on behalf of, what I see on twitter.com and my mother, that they're convinced that because they're so used to Igor Shesterkin making these crazy saves, that they naturally just play a little looser because they think that he's going to stop it. Whereas Jonathan Quick, he had kind of a rough preseason, older goaltender. They're not so sure that that the stop's always gonna be made. That's the hypothetical.
Yeah. No, I've heard all that, and I heard it when I played there, and it was bananas to me, because whether Hank's making the save or he's not, or Marty Biron's making the save, or Cam Talbot or Valley or whoever we had, like, it still shows up the next day like it was my fault that the chance against happened, and the playing time gets cut. So as an individual, it does not happen.
Yeah. Now,
I will say this. Hank played against better teams. That's how it was structured when goalies played, 10 years ago. They played 65 games. So, that's how it was. And sometimes we needed Hank to steal one because it was a back-to-back or a 3 and 4. He also didn't play the puck well at all, and he could not catch. So there were some chances and some plays where a simple play to the D-man would have helped, and a frozen puck would have helped. He made 9 saves after that, and the Garden's buzzing, and everyone's saying Henrik, and looking at us like, "What's wrong with you?" We had different when Marty, that one year with Marty Biron, who was my mic's falling away.
No.
Who was really good for us in that year. He played the puck more. It was different for our D, and it helped them, especially when Marty was playing the second in the back-to-back. So it really worked perfectly. Now, I have no issue saying that about Hank, because I think everyone knows how I feel about Hank and what he did. And if
Hank knows too. Hank knows it too.
Absolutely. And if not for Hank, I was out of the league, and he saved my bacon a lot of times, and then I could grow as a player, right? So I owe a lot to him, and he taught me how to be a pro. But that was just, his glove didn't shut. He hated it. It was so stiff. And I'm like, just get a glove.
Oh my God.
He didn't grow up playing baseball in Sweden.
That was great for the YouTube watchers.
The mitt up a little bit. You got to oil it.
Yeah. You gotta. He would turn it. He would go like that and turn it. And he was so quick, he could do it really well.
I've seen it. I remember it used to fly out of his glove too when he would do that, because he would flip it. And then the puck would just jump out.
But that narrative, like, it's fun to talk about, and people they're gonna continue to do it. Every organization,
of course,
with the true number one, it just, for whatever reason, it could be the schedule, it could be just that, but I can see why it's been brought up, because Quickie's undefeated. It's insane.
I mean, that's the thing, though, and it's always interesting, because I know you brought back a lot of memories where, I'm just gonna say it, younger Andrew back in the day, when back in college, be like, God, these guys, they don't show up for Hank. I don't understand it. Like, why the hell, what's up with, like, Hank is standing on his head every damn game, and these guys just. So again, from past Andrew, I understand where you're coming from. I do, and we all come to realize that, but now people are going to start saying this about another potential goalie controversy, which we'll get into a little more with Larry. But Quickie has looked great. I mean, Jonathan Quick is 8-0-1. Now here's the thing: he's 37. He is the backup goaltender. And Igor hasn't looked great since coming back from whatever minor injury he had. Now people can ask and question: is Igor fully healthy? Or is he just in a little bit of a rut, as is the rest of the Ranger team here? But I'm sure there's an analytical take about, a 37-year-old goaltender who shouldn't be starting, every game. But do you potentially see that being a problem moving forward, where the noise is going to start to grow and it could affect Igor's psyche, where it's like, shoot, am I going to lose, starts to Jonathan Quick, which again, it would help the Rangers in theory, but does that start to hurt his psyche a little bit?
If Hank didn't start 2 in a row, it was weird. But it did happen, and he would work with Benny for 4 straight days, and then Hank was back, right? So what do you want? What do you want, Igor? Do you want the most wins in the league, or do you want to be at your best when it matters the most? And that's all that matters. That's all that matters in that room. Let's get you right, and we will go from there. That's all that they should be focused on. And again, for us and for the fans, it's fun to talk about, or maybe it's not fun to talk about. I just love what they're getting from Jonathan Quick right now. And he's 17 away from 400. And I didn't think he'd do it this year, but maybe he does it this year. The pace he's on, I don't know if he's going to go undefeated, but it's pretty remarkable to see. In the way that the goaltending has been deployed the last couple of years, teams have had success with the starter getting 50, 52 games. So don't read into it anymore. That maybe he wants to play more and work himself through it, kind of like a Vasilevsky type. Both Russian. I just, he's too good not to come back, and that's what's going to happen. He's their guy. It's not going to be sort of a tandem. He's their guy. You're going to get some great wins from Quickie, and that'll hopefully position them where they need to be. And then it's a great insurance policy.
I do want to talk about how great that LA game was, though, for Jonathan Quick.
Yeah,
it
hell yeah.
It was just just a great story in general. He played unbelievable, and they were hacking at him too, and he stood up for himself. And we were going around the room, asking the guys what it's like to see when your goaltender's sticking up for himself like that, how that can rejuvenize a lineup. And it was just it was a really fun game. I thought the Rangers looked good. We haven't seen them set up in that 1-3-1 as cleanly as they did against LA. LA gave them a lot of time and space, and the Rangers capitalized on it. But Jonathan Quick was a rock for them back there too.
It's been wild.
Awesome.
This season has felt like a lot of different tours of revenge games. You've had, Lavi with the Preds, and you had,
and the Caps.
And the Caps.
Even though that was a bad game. That was it. But he was not happy about
no,
that
it's gonna
game.
happen. And actually, quickly, because Larry, I know, is here, we're going to get him on quickly, but I want to get your take on this, Brian, really fast. Speaking of the Caps game, Alexander Ovechkin, I just looked up really quickly, and his numbers are just not Ovi-like this year. Are we seeing some regression, or are we seeing age finally hit him? Is that what's going on
Father
here,
Time
has
caught up to the
he's
great
undefeated,
eight.
But I mean,
know.
is this it here?
I hope not. He looks disinterested at times. It's not. He doesn't look like he's fully there, and maybe he, they were in the mix, and I didn't really give him a chance. No, they haven't. No, their numbers aren't sustainable. I think they won a game with 15 shots on net.
Yeah.
And, he needs to score. He has to score for them, and we're all waiting for it. And he's just been so remarkable for so long. So I still believe he's going to go on a tear at some point, but I thought it would have happened by now. We'll see.
That's
We'll see. I'm nervous.
It's been a slow start, and as long as he's not scoring against the Rangers, that's always a good thing. Even though they took the loss, but you'll take those games. But I was just curious about your thoughts. Anyway, we're gonna get back into more of the goaltending discussion with the great Larry Brooks. It's coming up next and Up in the Blue Seats. Back on the podcast here, and it's time to welcome in Hockey Hall of Famer, New York Post great Larry Brooks. And Larry, we've been talking this little Rangers mini rut. Some goaltending. You had a great column discussing how, even though the Rangers haven't been playing great in front of him, this is Igor's time to really step up and stand up, kind of like Hank used to do, hop on my back, and he would steal those kind of games that you grew to expect from him. But like you noted, franchise goalies don't grow on trees, and we've kind of got spoiled with Hank here. With Igor now, since returning, being in a 4-5 little slump, allowing a little over 3.5 goals per game. Is there any need to be concerned about Igor going forward?
To a point, I think, because it's difficult because he talks so rarely and gives so, he says so little, but he also reveals so much those times when he does come out. Don't you think, Mollie?
It just says a lot about him as a player, I think.
There just seems to be this boiling frustration within him. And I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, but I think probably his mental game he needs to work on that as much as his technique. I think he looks like a little bit different goalie, certainly from the player who debuted in January 2020. I mean, he was just lightning quick across the net, left no rebounds. And it was like his pads were pillows, right? And honestly, like he absorbed everything. And, I cited Lundqvist in my column, and we've, you just mentioned Hank, but that was such a contrast that season when Shesterkin came up in the middle of 1920, because at that point Lundqvist had been leaving a lot of loose pucks around. It just became part of his game. And then here came Igor Shesterkin, and there was nothing. I mean, he swallowed up everything. And so I'm not sure. I'm not a goalie coach, but he looks a little bit different. I think his confidence gets shaken a little bit too. And that I don't think happened much to Hank too. Well, listen, Hank was not perfect, and actually, I recall almost every year, once a year, writing Hank needs to be better. Lundqvist needs to be better. This is what they need him for, to get him through these. And there was these stretches where he had dips. Even playing behind Brian Boyle, but so there were, so it's not that this is unique to Shesterkin, except he had a bumpy second year. It was a COVID year. Okay, but he had a bumpy second year. He had a great third year. He didn't have a fourth year that lived up to his standards last year. Now he's going through this. And so I'm not exactly sure where he is at this point. The Rangers need him to be better. They do. Because they need their goaltending to be able to bail them out. And any big time team does. It's happened too often the last few weeks. There's no question. This is not on Shesterkin. But he also hasn't been able to get them through these games where they just need somebody in the first period to shut the door and maybe allow them to get a little bit of equilibrium. That's what I see with him. A third of the way through the year, and there was also this line of demarcation where he was injured. His first 8 games through November 2nd, he looked, he was
great,
extremely good. I mean, I don't know if he was at the top of his game, but he was outstanding. Since he's come back, he's been, mediocre at best most of the time. So I'm not sure. Is there a correlation? Maybe. I don't know.
It was the Timmins goal, the long shot from the top of the zone that went through him. It didn't even look like he saw it at all, like not once. And that was a concerning one for me in the Maple Leafs game.
Now, Larry, do you remember when the rare time that Hank would not start twice in a row, and we'd have,
it became such a huge deal when he
Right.
didn't.
There were stories. I remember and it was a story. So you'd have to write about it. People would comment on it.
Well, I
He
remember the
basically,
first time he didn't start 3 times in a row when Cam played during
yep.
his first year,
Right.
and Hank actually needed to kick it in gear that year. There's no question about that.
Right. But
And then after you were gone, when Antti Ranta played 4 games in a row, because I mean Ranta
he was great.
Evolved into just a spectacular backup goalie.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran through this streak where I think he had a couple of shutouts and a couple of 1-goal games. And Hank actually sat for 4 straight games, and it was like the end of the world.
Well, but what was he doing though? He was in the lab with Benny Allaire,
Right.
their goalie coach.
Yeah.
And every time it happened, I prefer to the 2 games in a row because it seemed like that might have happened maybe once a year. Like you said, the 3 games with Cam, but
Yeah.
he would go in and it would just be him and Benny for a while, and then Benny would bring out the shooters, and then it'd be him and Benny after practice, and then he was a miserable guy to be around that 4 or 5 days. But then it was like, okay, we got Hank back, and then that was it.
Do you remember how angry he was when Torts would play Marty Biron in Montreal because he said he settled the team down?
Oh,
Well, that was a house of horrors for us for a little while.
Oh God.
Yeah. Well, we got into that a little bit with the Hank's glove and how stiff it was and his puck moving ability, if you
call it that.
Yeah. And then the boards in Montreal. I mean, Torts was onto something there, and Hank was the reason Hank's a Hall of Famer is because of that mentality. Yeah. He wants to play.
Yeah, the interesting thing too, that since we're demonstrating that Hank is not the perfect man. He didn't have much of a sense of humor about his puck handling skills, so to say. Honestly, he didn't. It was like you couldn't joke with him about it, or at least I know I really couldn't, and I could joke with him about a lot of things, but that was one thing that he didn't find too amusing.
That was a slow news day amongst us in the dressing room. We might bring it up just because we had won a few in a row or something, and we we're like, let's just start a fire here. And we chirp him about something. No, but and again, like I said it before, he was the man. Watching him made me a player, just seeing how hard he worked. But that's what he did. So I wonder if that's the reset, and everybody's different. Everybody's personality is different. I played with Vasilevsky in Tampa too. Maniac when it wasn't going right. That's the personality they have that, you can't overly criticize it, because I think in a lot of ways that's how they got to be so good at a position where you stand by yourself for an hour.
Yeah.
And on a good team, sometimes you don't get any pucks. So they're already a little bit nuts. Now they have to figure out a way out of it. And they're still back there by themselves, and the microscope is on them. I think we talked about it, the rushes against the high event hockey right now isn't the best recipe for him. I think you need to really clog it up, make it a slower game. You have enough talent where if you get a couple chances, all you got to do is score one more goal than the other team. They have enough horses to do it. They have depth guys right now that are playing so well. So really tighten it up, defend.
Johnny B.
And that's
Johnny Hockey.
The
Rangers Johnny Hockey.
The Rangers Johnny Hockey. Yeah, get it right. No, but and that was the other thing we were talking about earlier, Larry, is certain guys stepping up, especially Blake Wheeler, arguably best game of the season so far. He was one of the guys that I know Brian said it earlier. I remember when we were doing the preview podcast, that was one guy that I really liked the signing, and I was hoping that he would step up. It seems like he's starting to settle in a little more here now. Especially taking over for other injured players. You need these guys to step up.
Yeah, no, he's looked a lot better, I think, the last couple of weeks. He seems to have found his stride. He looks much faster. He's on the puck much quicker. So, and I agree. Look, I think I even may have written a couple of times that Wheeler has had the chance to be the home run signing of July 1st when you get Blake Wheeler for 8 or 825, whatever it was. I think 8. It's it's a reward. There's no, the risk reward is 100% skewed the right way. And I think it took him as Brian talked about, or we talked about Marty St. Louis a lot when he came over after such a long time. That's really one of the first times I was able to see just how difficult to transition it is. Certainly at the trade deadline, but even in the off season, you have Blake Wheeler, who'd been in one organization his entire his last 12 years or 13 years. So it was going to be an adjustment. I think it took a little time. The Rangers need him too. There's no question about it. They need production from him. They need him to be a physical presence too, because they don't have enough of them. They simply don't, and you don't want to ask players to try and do things they're not capable of. So when you have a guy who's big and takes up so much space and can get in on the puck, you need him to fulfill that role.
He's done that. He's done that. He's done that, and he did it in Winnipeg. But I think the higher profile guys, Larry, like to your point, it isn't easy because they're used to controlling the room. They're used to, especially if they've been there a long time, you walk into the arena, you know everybody's name. Those are hard things to adjust to. And it didn't end well in Winnipeg. And we don't really know everything that happened in Winnipeg, but I know it didn't end well. Last night was vintage Blake Wheeler, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
He had a couple goals, and sometimes when you're feeling it, quote unquote, or whatever, he's going to try things. But there were stretches in the third where if you'd never watched a game before, you see him flying around the ice. Who's that guy?
Yeah.
He looks like he knows what he's doing. Why isn't he playing more? And he was that guy last night.
Yeah, I'm sure if he keeps on that trajectory, he'll stay on that first line. But I'm wondering if we could see first line Jimmy Vesey in the near future.
He looked confident too. Entering.
Yeah, I think he's looked great.
I think
it's just a matter of like the lineup becomes so much shorter when you take Jimmy Vesey off the fourth line.
Right. That's why I don't think he Laviolette has talked about not wanting to break up the Trocheck line.
Yeah.
But he certainly doesn't want to break up the Goodrow line.
Yeah, he likes them.
It's been very effective for him, and if he moves VC off that line, it becomes something entirely different. But I think Jimmy's playing as well as I've seen him play throughout his career.
He looks great.
Playing, and again, it's not unique to him, but he's a player who is fueled by confidence.
Yeah.
And he just, he has so many, and I think he's better at this now than, he's a legit NHL veteran at this point, but he would have these dips, and, it just took him weeks to get out of, which kind of spoiled his first day, because he had stretches where he played as impressively as he is now, but he was doing it in the top 6 consistently in the top 6. He'd play with actually Hayes and Zook for a bit. I mean, he was a legit top 6 guy. So, and just so much of his game is scoring, playing with confidence when he has the puck. And I think we're seeing that now from him.
And confidence good, Mark.
Well, he's added to it though. Like and I ran into him a few weeks back, and we talked about he was, everybody wants to play more, and he by no means was complaining anything, but he was just like, I'm like, you got to figure out what you can do every night, and then the rest of it'll come out. And I think he's done that. Like, he's committed to that role on that line. Everybody wants to play more and score every night. He's committed to that and become a huge part of the team. So I'm thrilled for him. I just see him. You can look at his, I don't know if his body language, but how he looks when he's carrying the puck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to make a play here.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm going to, not like, I don't want to screw this up. What's my outs? It's like, all right, what can I do to create? What can I do to make a difference right now? I have the puck. And that's a huge distinction. That's a hard I guess it's hard for me to describe because I don't know if I did a very good job of it, but that's a big part of what Larry's saying with confidence. And I saw it with Wheeler too. He was reacting. He wasn't, where am I supposed to go? He goes, I'm going there, and that's where the puck is. I'm going to go get it.
While we're on the fourth line, I feel like we have to address Barclay Goodrow getting rocked in the face by a puck, spitting out what we've ultimately found out was not a tooth and was another part of his mouth that probably should still be in his mouth, as he described. Missing only one game and then coming back and not missing a beat. I mean, just first of all, I don't know if you guys watched the video, but I said this to Larry, he looks like one of those little puppies that get stung by a bee in the mouth and it just like blows up right here. And he's got a ton of stitches, but just what a beast. Like he missed. I asked him because I was genuinely wondering, it was a back-to-back schedule. He missed the first one. And I was like, was it a matter of, you could have played, but they were like, it's the back-to-back, he was like, no. He was like, the way he described it was, I had something else going on. So I think he actually had to have some sort of procedure in his mouth. He's like, I had something else going. He was like, as much as I wanted to have played, I probably couldn't have, but yet one game back in the lineup, wearing the full bowl, just we're not at the star of the week yet, but maybe he's mine.
Well, he brings so much to the team. He does. And he's a bottom six player. He can fill in the top six, but he's a bottom six guy. That's his role. But he brings attitude. He brings
he's a hard player.
He's a hard-edged player. He's sneaky mean when he wants to be. He can be really mean. If he thinks nobody's watching, and he actually doesn't really much care at times if anybody's watching. If everyone's watching, he's always there to stand up for a teammate. I know there's been a lot of controversy since the day he signed it's
just the contract
that is big. The cap hit is too much, and you generally don't see a guy playing in the bottom six or the fourth line making 3.6. However, I think they get value commensurate with that. I honestly do. It doesn't always show up on the numbers, but I think he's a very, very important guy on this team.
I couldn't agree more, and that's probably not shocking considering the role I played. But yeah, he is they identified a need, and I think some people might have thought maybe that's too much term, and it was maybe a few extra bucks that maybe people weren't as comfortable spending, but that is what they needed, and they got it, and he's lived up to it.
He earned it as a two-time Stanley Cup champion. Yeah. Like I don't think that people take that into consideration.
Coleman's making 5.
Yeah, like right? His body of work coming here, his resume
speaks for itself.
Like you wanna argue about the dollars and the terms, an expensive fourth liner like that, but he earned that. He earned that deal.
What I like too about Laviolette is he gives so much credit to the role guys, to the fourth line, and the way he went out of his way to compliment Goodrow after he came back on Sunday against the Kings was was special. I mean, you don't always see that from a coach, and I think again, and Brian can speak to this personally, but before you got here, when Yager was here, he would always make it a point to talk about the fourth line guys. Always, unsolicited. He would talk about, and we have the best fourth line in the league, and because people wanted to talk about him and Marty Straka and Marty Rosinski, and he would say, yeah, but don't forget about the fourth line, and that was the when they had Hallweg or Moore. And he would always bring it up, and I think that's something that the Rangers, this Rangers team is really good at too. emphasizing the role players and recognizing how important they are.
Well, when you don't have one, and that gets exposed, and there's sort of a carousel of guys coming in, as opposed to when you do have one that you can rely on, it's a different team in a lot of cases. Now that we felt the love from our teammates when we were an effective team, like when it was me, Preston, and Fedotenko, like we were kind of our third line because the fourth line was more heavyweights. We had that going on.
The fourth line never played.
we were effectively we were that same role. And then with Dom Moore and either Carcillo or Dorset, it was the same thing. And we were appreciated by our teammates. We knew that, and I don't care what you say to me if you're the coach. Just when it matters, and I know I'm supposed to be going out there, put me out there, and then I'll know you appreciate me, because you don't have to fluff me up, butter me up. Just get me on the ice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fluff me up, butter me up. I like it. Confidence is key, and confidence will be key moving forward for this Rangers team to get out of this little rut we got here. Larry, as always, we appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you next week. All right.
Thanks. Enjoyed it. Thanks.
And that'll put a bow on episode 136 of Up in the Blue Seats, our Rangers podcast from the New York Post. But before we end the show completely, we got to dish out some stars. Boiler, let's go to you first, since we already kind of heard who Mollie's might have been. Who was your number one star, Mollie?
I was debating two guys, but they're both older veterans. I'm going with Wheels. Blake Wheeler looked like a man possessed, even in the loss. And we got to give credit where it's due. He's, that was vintage Blake Wheeler, man. He's flying, creating. He can be such a weapon for them down the stretch. So I'm giving it to Wheels. Yeah.
Just curious who's the runner-up, because I'm going to make my own rules.
Johnny Quick beating his whole team.
Very valid. Very valid. Yeah, I'm going to go with Barclay Goodrow. I just think he's an absolute warrior for coming back, missing one game and just jumping right back in the lineup after getting his mouth absolutely rocked by a puck, and spitting out a part of his jaw, which Twitter really loved my phrasing on that one.
Phrasing, pause. Good 2 stars right there. Quickie obviously deserves to be a runner-up. I'm gonna give my 3rd star to the bread man again. Artemi Panarin notched his 700th career point in his 617th career game, 6th fastest to reach that among active NHL leaders, leaders. So hats off, high kick to Artemi Panarin. One last thing before I do the traditional wrap. We didn't talk about it because it got released and we were not around. Thoughts on the 3rd kit? I mean, Brian, you played in probably one of my favorite kits of all time, the 2012 Cream Winter Classic with the old school crest. But what are our thoughts on the new 3rd kit this year?
I mean, I really liked him. I know I might be in the minority, but I really liked him. It's a big whatever emblem or
the shield,
crest, crest.
Yeah.
I like him. I like him. I like him. And it's hard to screw up those colors and that uni for me. I did like the navy New York ones that we wore
at City Field Winter Classic. I love those.
Yeah, we did the 85, 85th year ones.
The 85 one. Yeah. The navy blue kind of.
Yeah. So I have the Winter Classic. I have the Stadium Series. I have the Traditionals. The Traditionals actually one of 2 jerseys I have pinned up in the house. I didn't do it. My wife did. They're in the basement. I don't really. But I like them. I like it. I keep going. Give me more. The white one though. I saw real quick. I saw the white one with Gretzky wearing it with Lady Liberty.
Yeah.
That one.
It's a beaut.
I'm such a Lady Liberty stan. I just think it's so vintage. It's so unique. I have actually, I might have it here.
Lady Liberty.
Should I see if I have it?
Go see if you have it. Go see
I'm gonna grab it real quick.
I'll give my take. Look, I like the 3rd kit. I'm not crazy about the logo right there. It gives me a lot of practice jersey vibes. That's the only thing where like
I can see that.
I mean, it's just see, that's a classic. See, no.
See, I like the new one better than that.
You like the new one better?
I never really liked those. I didn't like the navy with that.
but
Brian, I respectfully disagree with that take. Come on.
Hey,
I mean,
are you not a
Sorry.
Lady Liberty guy, Brian? Or
I'm just saying facts here.
facts?
this
All right.
this is timeless. If you're asking
That's
me.
practice jersey.
I know, but still,
practice jersey.
I'm just
That's
talking
Merrick-
about.
that
I'm
is
talking
Merrick
about the
Malik.
crest. Look,
I don't know. Merrick Malik between the legs.
my
Oh, man.
That's what I think of.
Yeah,
my
that's fair.
take on these jerseys, the color is great. I think the navy looks
The
clean.
sleeves,
It
the-
looks
the
slick.
arm.
Yeah. I love the stripe design on the side, the nod to New York City, the fact that it looks like the garden colors on the outside of the arena, the moving traffic. I love that. And I think it looks great. The crest is massive.
I agree.
Yeah, it's big.
The crest is too big, if you're asking
Square
me.
footage.
It's just, it takes up the whole thing, and it's just one big square, kind of, and it's so close to the letters too. The way that Truba's C looks like
C is like right on top.
It's
it's like propped on top of the crest.
Yeah.
It's just like sitting on top of it, and I just feel like it looks strange because I feel like there should be some space. But that's my only quarrel with it, is just that the crest is a little bit too big for me, but everything else, love it. Still think it'll look good, and that's my take.
Real quick though, is kit? Is that what they call it? Is that a new thing that they
No,
call
I
it?
think that's just an Andrew thing. Isn't a kit in
'Cause
soccer?
I had no idea. what
A
you were
kit
saying
is in
until you-
soccer, isn't it?
They're hockey sweaters. I don't know. Go
It's
on.
sweaters.
Well,
Sweaters
well,
or
yes,
jerseys.
They're jerseys. I don't know what Fanatics has it listed as. If it's the third jersey,
It's
the third
definitely
kit.
not kit. I'm telling you, it can't
right.
be kit.
Andrew, I wasn't chirping you. I honestly thought that was like.
But you should.
I've-
You
Brian
chirped
Boyle.
him for
Hey,
the
now.
for the manager and
Well, he kept
the
saying
clubhouse.
baseball
clubhouse.
terms.
And the
Why don't we talk
clubhouse.
about Ohtani? Let's talk about
We've
Ohtani's
got
contract.
managers, we got clubhouse, and we've got kit. So I think that's worth the chirp. It's jerseys or sweaters for hockey. Come on.
Listen. It's an alternate jersey. There you go.
There you
For the
go.
record,
For
the
the record.
jerseys are better than the old Lady Liberties. And
Okay, Brian, get out of here.
Mollie's chirping Andy.
I think we can all agree though that the traditional blue with the Rangers across, that's timeless. So I'm
Yes.
just gonna throw that out there.
So is Lady Liberty.
So
but that's
okay,
just
well,
me.
we can debate that for another day. Until then, as always, many thanks to Jake Brown for helping to produce the show, and of course the intern Mason Verdicchio for helping up as well. Good luck. Oh, this is your final week, Mason. Didn't even realize, dude. Well, appreciate all the luck.
Thanks, Mason.
Best of luck up at Syracuse. Yeah, you've been a great force to us, and hopefully you're rooting for the Rangers up in Syracuse. You should finish up there. You can catch up on all episodes of the podcast by subscribing to Up in the Blue Seats on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching us right now on the New York Post Sports YouTube page, give us a thumbs up and a like below. Comment. What are your thoughts on the third jersey? Kit.
There you go.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Is it jersey? Is it
Jersey.
kit? Is it sweater? Do you like Lady Liberty? Or are you in Brian's boat where it's a practice kit jersey? You can also
Get
follow us
outta
on
here.
Twitter at Mollie Walker. That's 2 E's and 2 R's.
Figure it
Eyebrows
out.
22 and myself, Andrew Harts, with no E. For Brian Boyle, Larry Brooks, Mollie Walker, I'm Andrew Harts. Happy Hanukkah to all our Jewish listeners. That's right. It's Hanukkah. My gosh, it's crazy how fast this is coming up. To all those who celebrate, we are back for another episode of the podcast next week. Keep tuning in, keep liking, keep subscribing. We'll talk to you then. Later.